right, folks, we are back here on WLTH 1370 AM in the Gary Hour. We're solid here. We got 35 minutes left. We wanted to ask you out there exactly what do you think is good about Gary? We have a caller on the line, Rev.
Hey.
Hello, caller.
Yes, this is Kevin.
Hey, Kevin. What's good?
Man, I appreciate you guys being on there. I think our lakefront is what's good about Gary. And I think one of the things that can revitalize the city is if we have some kind of theme park, amusement park, build it up.
So what do you like about our lakefront?
I think it's an industrial wasteland that needs to be cleaned up. And once it's cleaned up, it can be, $1 billion revenue for this city.
Oh, yeah.
I just watched the evening news tonight on ABC. And one of the things they did was show how Walt Disney had this vision for Kissimmee, Florida, to build the biggest theme park ever. Look what it is all these many years later.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I
that's
mean?
true.
We go north towards Wisconsin, you got Great America, Six Flags in St. Louis. I mean, theme parks can revitalize the city.
Yeah. So now, but to some extent, what would be involved in cleaning that up? I know you'd have to, U.S. Steel would have to play a role in it. I couldn't help but think that they wouldn't have to play a role in it.
I was just watching the news where they dumped a bunch of waste out by Portage and had the beaches shut down.
Right.
Yeah. But what we're really looking for is what is it that you like right now?
I like that lakefront. I'm a Miller resident.
Yes.
And I think Lake Street I think Lake Street at the end of Lake Street should be something huge.
So what are some of the things you do out there in Miller that you tell your friends who live outside the city about when you got relatives coming to visit? Where would be some of the things you would take them to see?
Ah man, the trails, I get up and walk every morning out there. And the beaches, man. The beach is nice, and I look how they remodeled them.
Man, that's cool.
That was an excellent project that took place a couple of years ago.
Cool. I like that, brother. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your call. Call back anytime, brother.
All right.
Yeah, I agree. As a almost lifelong resident of Miller Beach, I agree with him. It is definitely beautiful out there. I remember when I moved to Miller in early '90s when we first came out here from East Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot more. It was a lot more. Or should I say, it was a lot less built up. Lake Street and whatnot. It was very small. If you look at pictures of Lake Street from the early '90s, it wasn't as wide as it is now. It didn't have as many shops and stores. The Miller people have really done a good job of building things up, and it wasn't just the Miller people. The powers that be have definitely designated that Miller would be where things would happen for the city of Gary. I'll just say that.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but yes, I'm glad you posited that question about what's good about Gary, and for me, I always tell people that so many great people. To me, the best thing about Gary to me is that so many great people come from here, and I'm always shocked. Like whenever I go back to Wikipedia, or wherever I go to Google Gary, Indiana, and some people, I always find new people. And I swear I've been doing this for 20 years, but I always find new people to be proud of about who came from the city of Gary. I just found out about not too long ago about Charles Atkins.
Mm-hmm.
He was a boxer from here in Gary, went to Roosevelt.
Okay.
He won the Olympic gold medal at the 1952 Olympics in Helsinki in the light welterweight class. He defeated Viktor Mednov of the Soviet Union. This bout was notable as being the first ever boxing match between the United States and the Soviet Union. Man from Gary, gold medalist. I didn't even know we had a gold medalist in boxing from Gary. You look at somebody like Vivian Carter, who rest in peace to Gordon Keith, was always talking about Vivian Carter. Another person who did not get her due per se, the founder of VJ Records.
Mm-hmm.
They became a major independent record label. They had the Spaniels, Jimmy Reed, the Eldorados, John Lee Hooker. I didn't know that. Gene Chandler, Jerry Butler, the Staple Singers. I didn't know they had Staple Singers. The Four Seasons. They brought the Beatles to America. You know, they in 1963 they secured the American distribution rights to the Beatles,
Right.
and sold 1 million copies of Introducing the Beatles. But unfortunately, you know, contract loopholes and lawsuits caused them to lose them to Capitol Records. They were squashed by the machine, unfortunately. You know, Rev, I always love to talk about my guy from here. Well, from the East Side, Freddie Gibbs. You know,
Freddie Gibbs.
Yes, Freddie Gibbs, maybe the most respected rapper in hip hop right now. I can't think of anybody who's a more universally respected. East Coast, West Coast, down South, Midwest, wherever. You say Freddie Gibbs anywhere in the world in hip hop, and they say, "Oh, okay, Freddie Gibbs." You know, he was nominated for a Grammy this year. The brother grew up on 17th in Virginia, which is about 15 minutes from here. You could easily go see where he grew up at here. Like I said, he's become a sort of perennially nominated and respected rapper. Carl Malden, who won an Oscar,
Right.
Was raised in here in Gary. Kim Mizell, my man Sam Love, always is a good friend of Kim Mizell, whose father was John Grigsby, who was one of Hatcher's right-hand man.
Yeah.
And she's the first lady of house music. Anybody who loves house music, and I love house music, who grew up in the 80s and 90s on house music, Chicago house, that is worldwide now. She lives in England. She's on a TV show on the BBC in England. She was on a sitcom over there and everything. You know, from right here in Gary, Indiana. Geraldine Patton, when I had to do a sort of presentation about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. Yeah, this was pre-COVID. About the music of Gary, Indiana. I actually played one of the songs by Jalen. I would if we could still play music on here. But yes, she's actually one of the most critically acclaimed electronic musicians in the world right now. Seriously, she's not that old. She's in her 20s, I think, still. She worked at the steel mill for a while at US Steel and built her own home studio, and now she makes electronic music that gets all kind of rave reviews all over the world. Everybody knows about Glenn Big Dog Robinson. A lot of people don't know. The first black man to ever be drafted in the NFL was from Gary, named George Taliaferro. Think about that. The NFL is 75% black now. The first black man to ever get drafted by an NFL team was from right here in Gary, Indiana. He went to IU, played for the New York Yanks, the Dallas Texans, the Baltimore Colts, the Philadelphia Eagles. He was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame in 1981. Joseph Stiglitz, I read his book, The Economist, the left-wing economist, who's won all kinds of awards and a Nobel Prize. He won a Nobel Prize. We got a Nobel Prize winner in economics here in the city of Gary.
Did not know that.
Yes, Joseph Stiglitz. Read his book. I forgot what his book was called, but he definitely talks about a lot of what went on to circumvent the working class in this country and how we undermine how the wealthy undermine the rest of us here in this country. Tonyzell,
I remember him.
Yeah, one of the great middleweight champions of all time in boxing, back when boxing only had one champion per division, as opposed to the 870 now.
Yeah.
But yes, the man of steel, Tonyzell, he was the two-time middleweight champion. And like now, we got somebody like Darius Garland, who's balling out for the Cleveland Cavaliers right now. I always try to catch him whenever he's on TV, and I'm gonna let you get in here, Rev. But I definitely wanted to put the highlight on the fact that
that's good, man. That's good.
There is a city in Russia that is modeled after Gary. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
Yes, in the 1920s, back when America still liked Joseph Stalin and they still liked the Soviet Union, you know, before things went bad after World War II.
Right.
They actually came to Gary and modeled a city called Magnitogorsk.
Interesting.
After Gary, Indiana. Now the city, unlike Gary, which has lost so many people, Magnitogorsk actually has about 400,000 people. So it
wow.
Least, yeah. So we're at 60-something thousand. They're at 400-something thousand, and they were modeled after us. So I'm just saying, like, we are, and I'm so glad you posited this question, Rev. We are so quick to want to put our city down when the whole world has noticed the people that we have from here, and people and even modeled the school systems. A lot of people don't know Gary had one of the best school systems in America at one point, and people
Right.
used to come here to study the school system. In 1957, Ebony magazine called Gary, Indiana, the best city to live in for Black people in America. Like, this is insane. Like, all this stuff that we have available to us, all this information that we just don't talk about very often. But Gary, Indiana has accomplished so much, and people from Gary, Indiana have accomplished so much. And that's why I tell people I'm from Gary, Indiana proudly anywhere and everywhere I ever go. Okay, Rev, what you got to say? I'll let you. I don't want to monopolize all this.
No. That's the thing. It is fascinating to hear of the people. And I know sometimes I'll hear other people talk about, that there are some people that have gone on to do great things, and if only we could get them to come back.
Yeah.
And I admit it would be interesting to hear, because you often hear in other communities, like professional athletes that do things in their hometowns to, do we have that sort of thing going? I remember
Big Dog used to. I know he used to have a basketball camp.
Yeah, I remember there was a time when, for example, when Denise Williams used to do music themed events here in Gary.
Really?
Yeah, she used to do talent shows out here.
Wow.
I think I asked Tommy Williams about that one day. He said, well, she stopped doing that, when she couldn't make any, derive any revenue from it. And look, it does cost money, to do those sort of things. You can't do it for free. But, at the same time, we have so much talent out there. Is it that they don't contribute because, they see no reason to, no need to?
Right.
They've never been invited to. I would love to hear, what's going on with our expatriates out there around the country.
That's actually a very good question, because like we do have a caller. I want to get into that. Hello, caller. Hello, caller.
Hello.
Turn down your radio. Well, he just hung up on us after I told him to turn down his radio.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm actually glad you asked that, because I asked that for years about Michael Jackson and Jackson 5, because I'd see Michael Jackson in Africa. He's handing big checks to people in Africa and handing out checks to people in all these other places. Meanwhile, his hometown, the blackest city in America, a city that, like, if he wanted to run this city, the Jacksons could have run this city if they really wanted to. Like, think about how big Michael Jackson was in the 80s. I always tell kids today, if you did not see Michael Jackson in the 80s, you have never lived to see a real star. Because I don't care how famous Beyonce or Rihanna or Taylor Swift or Kanye West or Jay-Z is today, none of them are anywhere near as famous as Michael Jackson was in the 80s. He was more famous than the president. He was more famous than any other than maybe Princess Diana. That's the only person I could think of who may have been as famous as Michael Jackson in the 80s in the world. And if he wanted to come back to Gary, Indiana and run Gary, Indiana, he could have. And not just him, everybody in their family could have come back to Gary and run this city if they basically run it and just said, this is going to be called Jackson from now. We'd be Jackson, Indiana. Okay. and it's the same thing. And I do wonder about exactly that, because I know Big Dog, Glenn Robinson used to have the basketball camps here. And I know, I want to say Tank Johnson, or there's been some NFL players who are from here who do still have the football camp that they have here. But I don't necessarily see like the level of engagement from a lot of people, whether it's Freddie Gibbs, whether it's, Carl Malden or somebody before he died, or any of these people in the city of Gary that I see when I see celebrities from other places, other cities like Chicago, or from like, we're not saying R. Kelly was great or anything, but one thing R. Kelly did do was go back to Chicago and put people from Chicago on. He put Selena Johnson on. He put sparkle on. Um, a lot of the people who helped him secure a lot of the underage girls, unfortunately, were his people from Chicago. Okay, this is the third time this person has called. Hello, caller. Are you finally ready to be on the air?
Yeah, that was me. I called you earlier. I couldn't find my remote.
Oh, okay. It's all
Turn
good.
down my volume.
It's all
but
good.
I want
brother.
to tell you, there's a baseball complex right there by St. Catherine Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
It was built by a former, relatively young professional baseball player
mm-hmm.
from East Chicago.
Kenny
I
Lofton?
can't think his name right now.
Was it Kenny Lofton?
Kenny Lofton, yes.
Okay.
He built the baseball complex over there by St. Catherine Hospital.
Yeah, you're absolutely
nice.
right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. My family, Kenny Lofton, actually went to school with my entire family out there. From East Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
He did build that field, but that's what I'm saying. Do we have the equivalent of that in Gary? I don't know if we have the equivalent of that in the city of Gary.
I don't know if we do, but I do know that East Chicago, they have a couple of young NFL players that used to hold camps over there.
Yeah.
In East Chicago, but I just don't know who the guys are that's doing that here in Gary.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you for calling.
Thank you for your call. But yeah, Kenny Lofton is somebody who has stayed very rooted. Like I said, a lot of people in my family know and have been in contact with Kenny Lofton over the years, and
mm-hmm.
He seems to maintain his presence in.
Because here's the thing, given the fact that a lot of our upper income people are in the entertainment field.
Right.
Given that a lot of those people, come from Gary.
Mm-hmm.
It's not saying why don't you come? You ought to come do something for the city. It's saying, okay, this city helped make you.
Right.
Would it be a bad thing to ask you to come help? To give back, to not even necessarily give back, but to pay it forward, I guess. Right. I'm trying to say, to help expand opportunities for the next generation. I know on a smaller level, I know that there's a gentleman out here, I forget his name now, but he was a plumber, and he had a successful career, and now he's trying to open a school. AJ.
Yes.
AJ the plumber.
Yes.
Because he recognizes that there are certain skill sets that are valuable and that are marketable, and that we don't have a lot of, and so he wants to rectify that.
Right.
And see, that's the sort of thing I'm talking about. Not, well, why don't you give us some out of your bank account, but why don't you share some of your knowledge, some of your skill sets, some of the things that brought you success, so that another generation rising up, because we sometimes we criticize our politicians for not doing more, but the reality is our politicians can't do some of the things that we would like them to do. They're not made of money.
Well, some of them are. Nancy Pelosi's made of money.
Yeah, but she doesn't live here. She's not from here.
Oh, okay, you talking about Gary.
Right,
Well, some of our politicians, they some of them are doing okay.
They're doing okay. From that perspective, I'm just saying, look, I would love to have some of those people that have been successful in business or successful in academia come back and share some of their knowledge and some of how they got to be where they are, and maybe even try to replicate some of that success here in the region. I just don't think that we can depend on tax dollars to completely finance our growth.
Right.
I just don't. I don't see people in other states being willing to give away their tax revenue for us.
Yes, let's get this next caller. Hello, caller.
Hi, how you doing?
Hi.
Hi, Pastor. How you doing? And I'm Kim, Mr. Kim. I try to remember your name.
Yes.
But you know what? I was thinking about one of the things you were just talking about earlier about the community that you live in. I live in the Charleston area.
All right.
And I do. I love my city. I came to the city when I was, I think it was 21, 22 years old. So I'm in my 60s now. So I've been here quite a spell. I raised all my children here. All my children went to Gary Public School. And I tell you one of the things about Gary, I wasn't born in Hammond, but I was reared mostly in Hammond. And I moved to Gary. And I went to high school in Hammond. And I was just so floored, honest to goodness, when my children were going to school, elementary school and things like that. And looking at the things that they did, like talking about Black history, I never knew it was so many famous Black people. I promise you I didn't. And I was an adult. I just didn't know. I really did not know. And my children had that experience from the time that they were in kindergarten, through high school, knowing who they come from, But I'll say this: the one thing that you're speaking about, all of these people from the city of Gary, and all of these. Have anybody ever thought to contact people from Gary who previously lived in Gary?
Yeah.
And ask them, just ask. The Bible says you have not because you ask not.
This is true.
Right. That is true too.
This is
and
true.
It's just a simple thing, we have marketers in the city. I don't know what they do. I honest to God don't know. And one of the degrees I have is in marketing. And I just look, I say, all of this they have at their fingertips. And it would be so easy to sit down and make a form letter and say, we're in a city and this is what our city, blah, blah, Skippy is going through with. And I know you was a whatever in the city. And we would like to know if you would like to come back and have a day and work up something for these folks.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And see, maybe you can get some contributions and things like that for our city.
Right.
I think at one time, I think it might have been during the last administration, I think they had one time an event where they did a round table of some people they were former Gary residents who had, done well. And
I don't know who they were, but I know I have.
It's the only time that I've heard of such an event taking place here, and I don't know that anything developed from it.
I'll just say, nothing like that really. Now, like under Mayor Hatchett brought the convention here back, I think, in the 70s.
Yeah.
But but what are these folks doing today? These people have jobs that are making bukus of money.
Yeah.
Why can't they use their little imagination, truly, and try to do something a way to invest in our city?
Right.
Rather than, and then what really bugs me to no end is people, there are negative things that take place all over the country. Well, why do you have to put us always out on Front Street?
Right.
Why can't some of all of this stuff that you're talking about tonight be on Front Street sometimes?
I absolutely agree.
Because you know what? Like I told them one time, I said, if I was riding down the highway, and if I turned on my radio and I listened to these people, I just keep going right on past. For real, because all you heard was negative stuff. And I think this is a beautiful city. Honest to God, I really do. My children are all grown. I have 7 children, and they're all grown. I think of all of my children, I think 2 is still living in the city. And they always tell me, Mom, why don't you come here now? I said, no, I'm not going anywhere. This is my city. I'm going to stay right here. I said, but you're free to go wherever you choose. I have them as far as as Arizona and Indianapolis and out in Florida. They just scattered. But I'm going to stay right here.
Well, all right.
That's my desire.
Well, all right.
Okay.
Thank you for your call. We got another caller on the line. Hello, caller.
Hey, I want to ask y'all a quick question.
So
we keep talking about why people don't put out other stuff. Why we don't do it?
Who is we?
We as the people. I might not be a resident of Gary, but I'm in Gary more than I'm at home.
Right.
And I got investors in Gary. I got family in Gary. My daughters are still here. We always talk about why won't we?
Well, part of part of it is you don't know what you don't know. And I think for many of our residents here, if we knew how to do it, we probably would.
Right.
And many of the people that do figure out how to do it, they figure it out and then they leave.
Yeah.
But you got so many people that call on this radio station that got answers for every other city. They got answers for Chicago. They got answers for this area. They got answers for that area. But you don't have answers for the area where you laying your head at.
Well, I haven't heard many calls like that, but I will say I hear a lot of people calling saying, well, we ought to do this. For example, like the brother that called earlier, we ought to do this particular thing on the lakefront. The question is, how do you do that? What are the steps that you take to do that? And I wonder, is it that we lack the skill sets to do it? We lack the financial resources to do it? What is it that, because he's not the first person that suggested that we, turn the lakefront into a place where people would go for recreation.
Pastor, I'm a boater. I own a 33-foot cabin crew.
Uh-huh.
I've been boating for over 10 years. My brother's probably been boating over 30. So I would love to see a marina in Gary.
Uh-huh.
But the thing about it is us coming together. I'm going to just give y'all one quick example. Remember the Ford dealership that was on Grand Street, Tyson Ford?
Mm-hmm.
When Tyson Ford first closed down, I went to some people and I talked to them and I said, hey man, why don't we come together under a corporation? I knew a guy that did body work. I knew a guy that did electrical work. All it was in an automotive community.
Uh-huh.
The way it is, we could have bought that place, separated it inside, and ran it like I know other places in other areas. And what they call it is a tutorial.
Okay.
Where you can come, bring your car, anything you need done to your car. Frame work, body work, rims, sound, everything could have been done in one facility.
Wow.
And I talked to guys and said, hey man, why don't we get together and do this? They all looked at me like I was crazy.
Oh.
Because they didn't want to come together. Oh man, I got my own. I'm doing good.
Well, that is a problem.
4 of those guys, it was 7 guys.
Uh-huh.
4 of those guys don't even have a business right now. Well, we could have cornered the market. And at that time, I was living in Gary.
Yeah.
We could have cornered the market in our city. Because right now, we got people that leave outside our city to go get those services done that we could have been doing all in one place. And I think that's where it comes down to the problem in our race. I'm not just saying Gary, Chicago, anywhere. Our race.
Uh-huh.
We have a problem with working with each other. Because if you look at our communities, which everybody want to be a community actor. Everybody wants their own 501c3. Everybody wants their own office. Everybody wants their name to be in light. But I was always taught to win bigger in numbers.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe one day we will come together and quit thinking about, oh, my name got to be up front, or this name got to be up front, or that name got to be up front. And one day we will come together as a race and quit fighting against each other and help each other. That's why all these people of these other races got organizations that work together and they help people. When you ride through our community and you see people cutting grass, and I know y'all probably see it, that one brand new truck will pull up and 8 or 9, 10 Latinos get out, they all grab a lawnmower. And they cut grasses in our community to where they're getting $35 a grass or 40, what have you. And they're cutting hundreds of grasses in our community. And they're doing this every week because they all came together, them little small landscape companies came together and made one big landscape company, and now they pulling the market in our community. And we ride around our community and we see people getting roofs put on. How many times have you seen people of other races doing home repairs in our community?
Point taken.
But we talk about when NIPSCO is out here doing the streets and stuff like that. Oh, I don't see no people like us. I don't see no people that look like us. But when you look at our community and you see a lot of the work going on at home, them people don't look like us either. And that's simple as one, grass cutting.
Right. I agree.
Y'all have a good night,
All
man.
right. Thank you for
too,
your
man.
call. Thank you for your call. Point taken.
Point taken.
Yeah, and that will have. I'm sorry, caller. It's time for us to get out of here because I gotta play a commercial before we get out of here. But
next Friday.
Yes, before we get out of here, I want to talk about one of the good things happening in Gary, the Gary International Black Film Festival. There will be more than 50 films featured this year. It will be a celebration of Deion Taylor, who's from Gary. He will be the guest host of the fest. The online Deion-a-thon will start tomorrow and will feature screenings of his movies Supremacy, Black and Blue, and Intruder. He will also be in attendance at the opening night red carpet event at Art House, a social kitchen. The opening night film to be screened will be the Woodstock of House, the untold story of Chicago house music. He will also be featured in a film workshop on Saturday, October 9th at the Art House. A panel discussion will happen also. And closing night will be on October the 10th. It will feature an online award ceremony starring the Sounds of Blackness. I love the Sounds of Blackness.
Oh, nice.
Optimistic is one of my favorite songs of all time. And we got to get ready to get out of here, Rev. So let me just say...
So go and participate. Go check this out. Go support it. That's the only way that great things happen is when we support great things.
Yes. And